Is that working? Does that work? Yeah. Wasn't working before. No, should we wait for Nima? Right? Yeah. Nima may be late.
I do a question. Volume, right?
So perhaps we should start the prayers and Nima will be a little bit late. By the time we're done with the prayers.
Oh, that's great, yeah.
So beginning with the Heart Sutra in English on page 2.
On what page?
Page 2.
That's fine.
Thus I heard, at one time the Blessed One was dwelling in the world domain of Multipima, a great gathering of monks and a great assembly of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One was absorbed in the samadhi of the many aspects of phenomena called profound awareness. At the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasattva, looking at the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom, saw the five skandhas in their natural emptiness. Then, through the power of our Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to the noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasattva, how should the son of the lineage train who wishes to follow the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom? Thus he spoke, and the noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasattva answered the venerable Shariputra with these words. Shariputra, those men and women of the lineage who wish to follow the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom should look at it like this. The five skandhas should be seen purely in their natural emptiness. Form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form. Form also is not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, recognition, compositional factors, and consciousness. Shariputra, like this, all phenomena are emptiness and have no characteristics that they are more or less. They are not pure or pure. They neither decrease nor increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no recognition, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no sensation, no phenomenon. There is no quality of sight, and so on, until no quality of mind, no quality of consciousness. There is no ignorance and no exhaustion of ignorance, and so on, to no old age and death, and no exhaustion of old age and death. In the same way, there is no suffering, no origin, no ending, no health, no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since there is no attainment, Bodhisattvas rely on and abide by means of the profound perfection of wisdom. And since their minds have no obscurations, they have no fear. Transcending falsity, they attain Nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell on the three times have relied upon the perfection of wisdom, and have become true good Buddhas and unsurpassably perfect and completed enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of the profound perfection of wisdom, the mantra of insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequal mantra, the mantra which calms all suffering should be known as truth, for it is not deceptive. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is proclaimed. Thyata Om Gate Gate Haragate Harasamgate Bodhisattva. Shariputra, this is how a Bodhisattva Mahasattva should train in the profound perfection of wisdom. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and said to the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, noble Avalokiteshvara, that he had spoken well. Well done, O son of the lineage, it is so. O son of the lineage, since it is just so, The profound perfection of wisdom should be practiced just as you have taught, and the Tathagatas will also rejoice. When the blessed one is the venerable Sharadvati Putra, and noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasaya, and the entire gathering, as well as worldly beings, gods, humans, asuras, and gandharvas, rejoice and praise the words of the blessed one. Ramadam Gambo
Jese Jabe Yala Jazero Kange Loju Dini Tenda Nidananda Rasrage Chene Dego Jeje Siche Nije Tukara Lebase Kanda Sibe Soya Mare Medon Duma Jizebe Rozo Kuna Puji Kanse Yana Kuju Yamdeso Roda Chelo Nyumo Nilo Leje Jaro Roze Mare Mise Dune Nyumu Chenye Junze Rajena Dune Taju Saju Tasu Yede Luzo Jase Tuyako Chota Juna Juni Jete Talo Mise Jambe Yana Arapatana Ji Om Arapatana Ji Om Arapatana Ji Cheche Chera Uteji Nalo Tigu Mabarasani Kana Tinju Juru Tobayi Rodrio Bobe Nawatatus.
Continuing with the short mandala offering on page 18. Oops. Page 16. Saji
Veje Joje Medona Rera Nije Nide Jemane Saji Jindo Mite Purwani Rogyo Namda Jina Jebarayo
Jetsun
Nama Namba Jena Je Jogyo Kala Jense Tritrini Jeda Zambi Duje Zema Zaje Juje Jaba Vakuso
Edam Guru
Rena Mera Lagane Atayame
Continuing with the refuge prayer on page 22. Saji
Jana Toje Jana Ma Janjo Pardu Nani Jesuji Dage Jinko Jibe Sonanje Nola Pinje Sanje Luborai
Saji
Jana Toje Jana Ma Janjo Pardu Nani Jesuji Dage Jinko Jibe Sonanje Nola Pinje Sanje Luborai
Saji
Jana Toji Jana Ma Janjo Pardu Nani Jesuji Dage Jeje Jibe Sonamji Nola Benjire Sanje Lubarayo Tang Zubinda Sanji Chizoma Lesson Josoma Jazam Sanji Chidam Saji Chonala Janjo Pardu Nani Jesuji Sayadegi Jambu Denguyore Kaji Shizimari Jina Dagi Chunin Jibi Sonam Jisagena Dagi Chuche Jibi Sonam Jisagena Dagi Jenso Jibi Sonam Jisagena Nola Pichi Sanjim Rubasho Tetsakani Diri Sinje Denguyore Sinje Denguyore Chazanda Zo Jambu Dan Sinje Ni Denguyore Tamuzo Gyo Kanichi Duwaina Chu Kanichi Jivaina Jambu Dan Sinje Nige Sesame Tani Nangwe Kichimso Denguyore Tendu Ndishina Jambu Tamuzo Chidam 정부 당 교육 세트 이와야 붙여오래. 정부 세상고人对这里落这里啊，江州是个只能高阳为么的就能县里人对这里落这里江州是我的，现在吧，如果清楚过去，那跟那个江州县的，跟那个江州党，跟的江州是个有理的，因为你们结过来，跟的就是那个有的了，那三级股就是举股就跟你股就算了，就是江州省的三级股就是举股就跟你股就算了，你他把你说个论你长上带你。可能你这个说，就赶着去中央的，前那个前300，在这个落的来江州时候，江州当教育你的就有去了，可以讲江州市的教育一面了，教育的就是出那个有，加上江州市的落来，教育市的工作上的拉下过来。
Just as we recited, take refuge verse, the verse of taking refuge in 3 jewels and generation of bodhicitta. So here, it is important to understand that when we are gathering for spiritual practice, in other words, the Dharma practice, particularly the Buddha Dharma, the practice of Buddha Dharma, such as receiving teachings or engaging in certain practice of prayers and so on. It is important to ensure that one has a good motivation. Good motivation here in this context is taking refuge in 3 jewels and generation of bodhicitta. As we find in the verse itself, I take refuge in Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha until I'm enlightened. And this line is the line of taking refuge in 3 jewels. And then by the practice of generosity and so forth, or in this context, we as receiving the teachings of Dharma, when we are reciting this verse, when it comes to this line, one is saying that by the hearing of this Dharma teachings, may I attain enlightenment for the benefit of all other sentient beings. This line is a line of taking the generation of bodhicitta. So now, we as a follower of the Buddha Dhamma, a practitioner of Buddha Dhamma, one's practice must be always influenced or with a condition by taking refuge in 3 jewels and generation of bodhicitta. So when speaking about taking refuge in 3 jewels, and then refuge, object of refuge, so there are 2 different things that we need to understand, the distinction between the 2. Taking refuge in 3 jewels is the individual who is actually taking refuge, and to whom one is taking refuge is to Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. And Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha is said to be the object of refuge. And we are the one who take refuge in 3 jewels, with the 3 jewels referring to Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. One should have a genuine faith or devotion, in other words, irreversible faith and devotion to the 3 jewels. One then take refuge to 3 jewels from the depth of one's heart. And that is what is meant by taking refuge in 3 jewels.
먼저 근육을 돈이 있는 가르치고 해서주로 저 산주 근육세한테 다저다 정로들 요 주저던 리전이야 요 지쳐버대 저다 정로들 서고 저다 계속 시고로 저희들한테는 주저던 리전이 시고래 저다 주저세야 되다 라는 타대비 있잖아요 네 주저서 거래 그냥 되면 좀 된다 바데 아니 주저서 주저 도바고 와서 거래 산주 근육와서 거래 아니 좀 된디 투지를 나는 게 뭐대다나 안 됐어들이야 아니 출근 좋아서 그래 정무에서 주저서 줘요 아니 좀 된디 거는 아니 근데 그 주시 하는 거 밥에 가다가 저도 근데 그 주어서 대샤워 됐어들이야 주저서라고 주저서 뭐 아니 라니 뭐봐 토반주에 산지 때 아니 저도 봐봐 라니 그 줄에 아니 뭐봐 도저 주에 와라니들이야 죽어줘 뭐하바라니 밥이 가서 차야들이야 차들에 밥이 가서 차로 대로 밥이 가서 되려야 아니 근데 좋았어 어디 주제들 디자인이 와도 쳐
So again here when we speak about taking refuge in rituals, there are of two kinds of object of refuge that one should also, which is also important to understand. One is the causal refuge and one is the resultant refuge. The causal refuge is a refuge that we take. We normally take refuge and identifying Buddha as the object of refuge, such as Buddha is one who attained complete state of enlightenment to abandonment of the obscuration to liberation and obscuration to omniscience. So therefore, Buddha is the enlightened one to whom we take refuge. This is I take refuge in Buddha. That is what is meant by refuge in Buddha, which one is taking refuge to the causal refuge of Buddha. And then the Buddha's quality of mind, such as the path and cessation, the possessed by the Buddha, is said to be the object of Dharma jewel, which is the actual object. Dharma jewel is said to be the actual object. And then Buddha himself, who is actually, who possess the superior path. So therefore, Buddha is also the Sangha is embodiment of the three jewels. So what is identified as the causal refuge. And then when it comes to the resultant refuge, is the three jewels which is to be accomplished by oneself in the future, such as when one becomes enlightened being through abandonment of the obscurations, one then become a Buddha, which is one's. So therefore, one's future Buddha is the Buddha to whom we take refuge as a resultant refuge, and then the situation in the path that is to be achieved by oneself in the future is said to be the Dharma refuge, the resultant Dharma refuge. And when one gains the superior path, in other words, realization of the direct realization of emptiness, one then becomes a superior being or the noble being, which is again resultant Sangha jewel. So therefore, those are the two kinds of refuge that we find that we should understand. What is causal refuge and what is the resultant refuge? The very purpose of taking refuge in three jewels, the causal refuge, is to for the to attain these three jewels within oneself.
답에나 때문에 좀 답은 저도教授의 주제시 수고도教授의 주제시 대한 정도는 연구해주셔. 란지바 타다를 좋아 임바. 인지바 타다를 좋아 타락해 봐 임바. 그런 일을 해봐. 배 따마다 담지게 된데 봐서 도스 주제지 돈이 아니教授가 같이 소용 거래. 대나네 때문에 좀 답은 세미지도 이해서 걸어. 세마주가 롤라 페이지가 때문에 저러 찾아 대해서 하나지. 세미지가 이해서 걸어. 세마스인데 물로 와서 걸어. 그래서 때문에 좀 된데 로가 있는教授의 준세잖아. 때문에 좀 되는 세미지가 임바. 그냥 랑도가 내가 로하면 임바. 내가 준세도 아니. 아니教授가 해서 걸어.
So, why the Buddha is said to be the perfect object of refuge is because Buddha who gained this supreme quality by freed from all the fears and possessing this skillful means or the method to free other beings from the fear of samsaric existence. And those are the first two qualities. And the third quality is said to be that Buddha has no partial way of looking at other sentient beings. In other words, impartiality. So this is the third quality. And then the fourth quality that Buddha possesses is that whether it is beneficial, whether someone who benefits him or not, whether someone who have a faith or someone who have a devotion to him or not, so far as his concern for all other sentient beings are equal, without any discriminations. The Buddha, someone who achieved enlightenment will always have this, genuine intention of working for the welfare of other sentient beings, regardless of who they are. So therefore, having possessed such supreme quality, Buddha is known as then Semikibu in Tibetan, which means the valid being. What is meant by the valid being? Buddha is, in other words, again here, the Buddha is not someone who actually is valid being right from the beginning, from the start, or from the beginning. He became a valid being. That's what the Vasubandhu has stated, that someone who became a valid being, who protects sentient beings, I take refuge by the great Indian masters of Vasubandhu. So therefore, what is meant by valid being is because someone who has completely abandoned, who is free from all this fear of secular existence. If one takes the refuge to such beings, then one's protection of fear from secular existence is valid. It is not invalid, in other words.
답에는 되는 여러분도 산지를 짜서 로그를 줄을 짜서 로그 근들을 짜서 로그를 했어. 다만도 산지를 짜서 로나는 말하는 소문이 산지를 짜서 로는 말하는 소문이 가르치고 그러세요. 다들 도와주므로. 제가 저로도 산지잖아. 산지
So here I have a little question for all of you. You can answer the question. When we all follow the Buddha Dhamma, and we take refuge in two jewels, particularly the first which I take refuge in Buddha. So what will happen to us with refuge in Buddha? For what purpose we take refuge in Buddha? So this is the question. What is the purpose?
To help other sentient beings achieve enlightenment.
圣经贤里啊，看到也去的因素，圣经就是这个。Anyone? Any other? Andrew has already answered the question.
So, what's the exact question? I'm sorry.
Why do you take refuge?
Then Buddha. What's the purpose?
To be honest,
党不起来的人什么？
I
党不
took
起来的人
refuge
什么？
哦，
because I admired my teacher and he told me to.
Okay,
To be honest.
okay, that's good.
Okay.
Okay, good. 나 기행절이야 가부에서 혼자 상계를 겹스도나 겹스도와라 간디 겹스도에서 기행절도 송산들 디 existence. Yeah, that's good.
You know, when I first started studying Dharma and trying to learn Dharma, I had some intellectual understanding of what I was reading. It was very clear to me that there was no way that I was really going to understand this and be able to accomplish it on my own. I needed teachers. My first teachers led me to understand that the root teacher of everyone, Buddha, and it's his teachings that they try to embody. If I want to become enlightened and free myself and other people from samsaric existence, the Buddha is who I have to ultimately rely on. So that's why I take refuge.
그러나 그 상계를 겹스도야 돼. 지난 소소량이지. 나중에 근데 연례제 소소랑 상완제제 로장을 제제 그때는 지 대전지 남주에 대해서 공부를 시켰는데 이게 교리야 지 교리야 다 아니야 지 또고 교리게 하는데 야 거부를 해서 손자 이게 때부터 3년 안 되고 또 당보거든요. 이게 말되는 이제 소소랑 이제 상황을 제제 로장 지역에는 소소야지 남녀를 때 공부할 때 연습이 되네.就是给了多点考试介绍的地方上，给点点不是。你给点点就是我呀，就是作为了嘛，的睡眠的，就是改变你作为了嘛。你从以前的这个全部学的这种用不具体对不对？但已经下的是，就是这里到可能就是到所给了呀，到不那么去改了呀，给点点都一点不多，给点点。 所以这边的送，他们就对单一一点起来。第一站呢，就是他去时间，所以觉得到不了有人站呢，这三个就是这个是。对。
从来不多。
All the answers are very wonderful.
现在为了给中国人，让就早些年这边出了呢，让个早的或者给些年的意思就是。 근데 예배 레저드 기준으로 가르쳐 봐요. 너라 배지 산중도 보셔서 그러고. 너라 배지 산중도 보셔서 상만진의 예배 제를 산진의 예배로 해 들어. 대인도 산진의 꾸려 져서는 예배 제 상다 대야고도. 근데 정보세야 돼. 레다 산지게 간단한 그 최근에 다니지 말고 때문에 나는 지금 저기나 그 너무 다셔지는 정보들에서 뭐다 그 음악을 들어가지고 걸어. 근데 다니는 말로만 내가 나는 지금 저 차도 좀 빼야거든.
So all the answers are pretty good, and that's really true. The relying upon one's spiritual master who embodies the teachings of the Buddha is something that is very important for all of us. Because if you look at the stages of the in any teachings, whether it is be it a sutra or mantrayana, we find that first of all the importance of practicing relying upon the spiritual teacher, and then the next that's to benefit other sentient being, which is really true. Because our very purpose of studying Buddha Dharma is to attain, to become a superior being, or in other words, Arya beings. And then at best, we are trying our best, the endeavor in our practice to attain state of enlightenment is all for the benefit of other sentient beings, as we recited earlier. And then also the another is very good, which is we admire one's teacher, that what very admiration comes from his teachings, his or her teachings. And that teaching is something that makes you change your mind from positive, negative to positive. So all these answers are wonderful, actually.
당 말한 거 상수 지시겠어. 당 말한 거 상수 가려 있나. 상주 군절을 껴서 그러게 지배이나. 상지기 에는 말한 소리야. 랑도겠네. 대연도 상부. 상지라다 껴서 누구도 상부 상지기 랑도겠네. 때마대 에는 소속에 나는 지 그거요 봤다. 상지기 답이구나. 되시지 나는 제발라. 라니기 시고요 봐. 이해가 시바다는 전혀 많이 봐. 라니기 시고요 봐. 라니기 시고요. 손사 라니기 tel로는 제고요 봐. 로전 제단디네야. 제산지가 숨셔서 듣다 전혀 많이 봐. 스게데 레바다라 나에 가사 나에게. 안에 소속이 제도 시로 표지제네. 산지기 소셔지 따라야 지방에 다되는 애들로서 버튼 체네. 아니 어머니 가게 산지기 소문하는 인물을 보대 소속을 랑시바 대내지가 도안에 있는 소속은 나는지 그 여바지 제 산지를 띄어서는 한 소속문이 내가 대내지 지고 여바지 저 대내지 도안에 그였어 알아도 돼.
So now it's my opinion. I'm also answering to the question that I asked earlier here. By taking refuge in Buddha, my answer to this question is Buddha as someone who shows us the practice of abandonment and achievement. And whatever the practice of abandonment and achievement is shown by the Buddha is followed by one's put it into implemented wholeheartedly by oneself. So this all the practice that is given by the teachings of the teachings of abandonment and achievement is given by the Buddha. It's not just not ample by listening to other beings, someone who, while listening to others and others' explanation, but one should be known by oneself. All the practice, with the stages of the practice in a proper sequence. In order to know those proper practice of abandonment and then achievements, one need to study. And in other words, rigorous studies is very important. So studying one's study is not merely based on faith alone. One study and studying of the teachings of the Dhamma is based on utilization of one's wisdom of discernment. Just as we find in the sutra that just as a goldsmith tests the gold, authenticity of the gold, by rubbing, polishing, burning, cutting, and so forth. Similarly, the teachings of the Buddha must be examined by oneself. The reason why we need to examine Buddha's teaching is because there are teachings that are what we call definitive, and there are teachings what we call provisional. So we need to understand what are the teachings that are provisional and what are what kind of teachings that are the definitive, which is very, very important. It is for this we need this wisdom of discernment. So if one is able to do that, then one can be able to essentialize entire teachings of the Buddha. So this is someone who, from my own opinion, someone who takes refuge in Buddha should have this kind of quality.
다 출근전에 저는 나는 못 되고 살아요. 고소 공세주.
So the next question, by taking refuge in Dharma Jewel, so what is the purpose of taking refuge in Dharma Jewel? Anyone? Good. Dharma Jewel. So we already finished Buddha, right? Now
Yes.
Dharma Jewel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, what is the purpose of taking refuge in Dharma?
I think because you're not going to do it by yourself. You need a lot of help to be able to not stray from the path to enlightenment. And the Dharma are stages on the path. And it's very easy to be distracted and go off the path. But if you stay relative to the teachings, then the chances are fewer.
그런 저 가서 랜디를 소소 다 랑이기 중고 말아서 소소 랑이 뭐 제일 전에니 다 처리 겹쳐 줘야 돼. 즉 남기 좀 봐. 그 발음기 줘야 돼. 처리 겹쳐 만드나 남기 좀 발음기 말아서 선서 대처 좀 됐어요. 되겠어요. 처리 겹쳐 줘야 돼. 남기 좀 발이야지. 소소소. 사단 남기를 받아 좀 거기 공부해야 되는 게 원래 계속 만드는 용 말해서 되게 그 맨로 인더시죠. Michael or anyone?
Okay. In one context, the Dharma is the path. The Dharmakaya is the truth body that one's achieves when it reaches the state of enlightenment. This is what one is striving for, and unless one follows the teachings, the Dharma teachings, one can never achieve that. You have to depend on that truth, and those teachings in order to achieve the goal.
제가 그 섬수스는 그렇지. 금자를 가시 분들이 내 덕분들이죠. 다 지난 주 먼저 그 파괴 강의 교를 대비하는 간다. 고람이 강의지 샤워로 봤어. 근데 다 상계 파괴 교를 샤워는 야 직주보다 근데 소리가 샤워로 봤어. 그래서 다 대답이 소리 연대 강조를 해야 돼요. 근데 상이 손셔에 손다 간다. 야데 그래서 먼저 답변이지. 군주비 지역세로 시도를 지도 델리아 아니면 델리아 교수도 델리지 대외에 안되는 신이 아니 랑귤리아 다 주고죠 랑귤리 계약 다 양서를 내려와서 대선자니 주고죠다 무슨 어디신 것만 되네 다 뒤체에는 주고죠 계속 조회는 대답이 되지라 길대살에서 Any answers?
I think Claire was here before me. Okay.
Well, the Buddha spoke to his followers, to his disciples, and he taught them. He taught them what his experience was and showed them what the path was. And those teachings were eventually written down. And so the Dharma is the written word, texts, and it's a very critical aspect of being a Buddhist is to have the access to the teachings that have been passed down for the last 1,500 years as a direct connection to the Buddha.
그런 데 산계에 정말 그런 게 산계라는 얘기는 디저트야. 쉐 손에 가다 남기를 어떻게 손으로 봤어. 남기만 손지. 이 손선이 산계에 소생량도 관여 되게 되잖아. 그런 디저트만 손. 근데 지수는 디저트게 인들이 많이 돌아지. 마셔야 was 근데 정말 차비도 세월하다 뭐 세월하다 그래서 되게 되다 로전제 대제비 시원이 소소규래야 가는 이제식 그래서 대표한테 가려다 대답을 로전제 제비는 이제 고된들 남대세 이제 마음을 안 길래 계약이 지 단소식을 해도 봤어 그래서 대선자 최고를 겨뤄줘야 ninguém tira.
Oh, and one more thing. The Dharma tells us to be adopted, wants to be abandoned. And this is what's necessary to become enlightened. So one can't become enlightened without the Dharma.
그래서 근데 최를 땡겨는 대표적인 최선의 정도 단단히 최대 세금을 대표적으로 나한테 차비세야로 되는 세금다. 그래서 될 땡겨는 신에서도 라운드기 라운드 주도야 아니 딱 해봐 차이로 봤어. 그래서 될 대제선들이 최고조리야 또 대개서 도가 지고 라운드는 지금으로 봐. 소리 들이야 죽도야 이제 그거는 미치를 맨나서는 제대로 알았어.
이번도 배나 중국장 안주대학의 채도 대 가서 그래 대들도 되니 이거 손에 손이야 로전지야다 나네지야 근데 집에 그 있는 걸 라지를 때니 너무 바라고 줄이야 중국장을 뭐라니 라지지 용어로다 어떤 전에 선수여도
So that's actually a good answer. For instance, by taking refuge in Dharma, we study Buddha Dharma, and by means of studying Buddha Dharma, and one will be able to engage in the practice of achievement and abandonment, which then eventually, in the future, one will be able to achieve Dharma jewel, which is path and the cessation.
또 추구조세한테 뭐 무슨 제도를 그래 추구조세한테 뭐네 추구조데 뭐대다 나대니 되는 제거래.
So the actual, when we talk about Shokunjo, it's a Dharma Ratna or the Dharma jewel in English. It's the actual Dharma jewel is the path and the cessation. So those two are the actual Dharma.
란지 데바세한테 pomba di mo sondo tongi shiro chika chikire 란지 데바세 월 로레 shirore gobe den baseade nyemo pombi ane tawa chire gobe den baseade tabare.
So the path here refers to the wisdom realizing emptiness. direct realization of emptiness, the wisdom that is attained emptiness directly. That is what is meant by path here. And the cessation is the state being free from the frictions, or the state being free from sorrow. That is what is meant by the cessation.
Tenya sanji ki sum shaji tala nase som chegre sanji ka change le be ka sano shini sum be ka sano jisu na be ka sano tena nase som chegre ka da jang sanji ki sum shaji ki ni chue po de so chue po de sa da sanji ki sum chue de chue ko jong mo ma re chue ko jong du she sha jo re sanji ki shini sum sum to ne da re de ba chi ge chue da re tena yida ji shini ma so e tu da na ma du ka da ba so ya so re ta ka da so de da re che san chu ku jo du shi sha ku ga le chu ku mo ma re so.
So now, here the thing is that the teachings of the Dharma that we study, which are the words of the Buddha, and all these words of the Buddha are said to be the provisional jewel refuge. It is not a definitive jewel refuge, or not an actual jewel refuge, Dharma jewel, Dharma jewel. So all the teachings that are given by the Buddha, such as, Perfection Sutra, or Abhidhamma Sutra, or, Middle Way Sutra, and so forth. All the teachings are given by the Buddha to their disciples are said to be the Dharma, but that's not the actual Dharma. It is not the jewel Dharma, in other words. And so those are the teachings that are given by the Buddha. It's the Dharma which is known as the provisional Dharma. It's not the definitive Dharma.
Tene ta marang san su jena chue ku jo la ja su ro be ji bi su ta in bi chan ni ane so so ge zo na le sa re ta zo la da kar ji na zo la da ji de to ma ni ba da re.
So my answer to this question, the question that my own question, answer to my own question, it says, by taking refuge in the Dharma jewel, the main is to do the practice of wisdom realizing emptiness, meditate on wisdom realizing emptiness.
So chue ku jo de je so ne je mu se la wo re. So mu le ku ji de ka na ma ne ra ni nyo no ku de ba de ji de ba le je mu ne se de chue ku jo de re so ro.
So this Dharma jewel is said to be the actual refuge. Out of 3 jewels, Dharma jewels is said to be the actual refuge. The reason why it is called actual refuge is because by attainment of Dharma jewel, it is because the actualization of the Dharma jewel, one will be able to free from afflictions or delusions.
Tongba ni ya bo ju ko ni rang ju le ton mu to be shire je to na ma de se de mu go ne ko rang du le ma jire to ma jire.
If one engages in the practice of meditating on emptiness, as a result of one's practice, when one gains insight into the emptiness, in other words, the direct realization of emptiness, then cessation will be followed as byproduct.
Tene inde sanji ki tabi ga la de te rani ga na sa la ane rang ju le ya rani ga to ma ni ko to ma ni la ko de te ane rang ju le to ma ni no to be shira rang ju le je te ge nyu mo ta 영어 배우가 되게 되고 님보체 눈이체 아니 되고는 빵빵 뭐네 아니 뭐 뭐니고 세지 근데 나도 제 중국어로 되게는 아니 산지서 그러
So it is by following the teachings of the Dharma, not only just listening to the teachings, but one follows the practice. Whatever the teachings that one may receive and one may listen to must be followed by the practice. And the main practice here emphasizes on is to understand how things really are. In other words, to meditate on emptiness. And as a result of prolonged meditation on emptiness, one will be able to achieve wisdom, direct realization, wisdom which realizes emptiness directly. It is through this it is by this means one will be able to abandon the two obscurations. And as a result of abandonment of two obscurations, with their imprints, one will then be able to achieve what we call the cessation, which is the cessation from the two obscurations. And as we achieve this cessation from two obscurations, one will then be able to achieve what we call the Samuccaya, nature truth body. Samuccaya and nature truth body.
다 근데 저쪽 그러나 아는 말씀은 같이 보여서 teleko요
So first, another question here again. Taking refuge in Sangha jewels. What is the purpose of taking refuge in Sangha jewel?
It's for support of your practice, because unless you see that other people are progressing, you would have no hope of progressing.
So that确解的可能对手的弱，确解的是弱几个字，就是弱人几个字，他可能就根据确简单的来点，就是要确解就第解释出来了，过个是第来是学习过了。Any? Okay, your answer.
The Dharma is very complicated.
Okay.
And so I've always looked at the Sangha as kind of a common reflection pool, to help understand, resource, a reference point, like a family.
Okay.
And so when I get lost, Andrew goes, oh, my God, blah, blah, blah. Okay.
Likewise.
So
So
就感觉到鸟巢的就是可能鸟巢的对来了的那些，就感觉鸟巢的他现在感觉是他现在感觉的农民的他这说说的他这方法这个去，确让出来的这方法这个他现在的说是变成农民说的去，说呀就我现在去这个问题是啊。
We're not individuals. We are only what we are because of others. And that's the Sangha. We're not a singular person. We are in association. It's a
yeah, but there's a disciplinary in the Sangha, in the monastery. I'd like to point that out. There is that, anyway, sorry.
他就说说而已，他就他做前面呢，人类说说而已就他跟主要靠我切入我的从生的，人类这个呢，反正确人类这个呢， so the torch over was in the way in the Nemachi, Takanda. You the Nemachi, and that you torch over was the Julia. Just try to achieve the men of savage.
I need to answer to, I suppose.
Yeah, anyone, yeah, just
Yeah,
come
okay.
on, no
All
problem.
right,
Just
so,
answer.
If Geshe-la is talking about the Arya Sangha, there is the Arya Sangha,
The Sangha Jewel is a
who have- that's the Jewel
Yeah,
Sangha.
Jewel Sangha, yeah.
Those who have achieved advanced stages of the path. If he's talking about the ordained Sangha, traditionally the monks in robes, that's another thing, but particularly here in the West, we think of the Sangha as our spiritual community. I like to think that although the monks have more vows and are wonderful role models, that the same is true of all of our spiritual community. They are our companions on the path, and we aid each other along. We correct each other's paths. We aid each other, and we lean on each other for strength and reinforcement.
그런데 최근적인 기는 그래서 그 강사다 아베 강사에서 시작으로 봐서 최근적 아베 강사도 대대고 있구나 아베 강사에 제일서 와서 이제도 거들려도 완전 뉴스 긴도 세가다 건조스는 이제 안다고 상가 지구지 상가 라트나 상가 멤지 상가 상가 주어스는 표본에서 뭐라 근데 멤지 상가 지구에 있는 알아서는 게 제가 최적인 념는 같은데 저것이로다 근데 상가에 있어 can do source
So-
say can do source can do the to get along number you think then that you so supplementals as on these on the delia ni so kunje jesu daji korajulia 동배 먹고 손제 먹고 싶나 볼까요? 손제 나야 되게 제가 수수님 냠내내 팬더 유럽시 생겨서 군주의 지수랑 소소문이네 인데시 동그레 섬처럼 소소 집배제 쉬어셔 봐서 대선자니까 상가세다 군주 견뎌 비즈의 지수랑 배나 소소에 되게 차세에 섬처럼 로직을 이루어 소소 로드시키 와서 대선자 거기들 기능 군주 간다 견뎌는 게 수로야 돼 거기 때문에 와서
So, the Sangha are also our teachers, teaching us what to adopt and what to abandon.
견뎌버렸다 또 지난해 수수의 경연에서 그래서 수수의 최대 작업에 수수의 최대의 작업에서
그래. 제가 선수에 야구도 합해요. 제가 나중에 근데 그저도 시험때 저주는 다 좋았으려고도 봐. 저주는 다 좋았어. 다 좋았어. 다서 그런 거 보고서 그래. 다와서 상보랑게 로봇은 다와서도 아니 저 제가다 저 상보 들리지는 나요. 근데 그 좋았으려고도 얘네다 근데 그 좋아. 세대 다래 말도 무배다사 제가 다 말아서 진짜 근데 그들을 쪄서 그러나 아니 가르쳐 버려서 그냥 가르쳐 버려서 해나 근데 그런 거 난다는 그랬죠. 난다는 그래요. 아무 일 때문에 난다서 저러. 그런 거 제일 제가 저러. 대소 소속에 때나게 렌트 제거해야 돼. 그저 강제만 나게 소속에 때 렌트 제거하다고 해야 돼. 다 그냥 저선 거니. 내가 저한테 비슷한 거 치래.
So Dharma, I mean, sort of Sangha, the Jewel Sangha, is also said to be the companion who actually help us and support us in our practice as a community. And certainly, when it comes to the Dharma Jewel, is someone who has gained a noble path, who possessed a noble path. In other words, at least the path of seeing must be achieved. And then, of course, there are other sanghas who are actually not a noble, who are not actually Arya, but it is by their support and by their, guidance, we are able to venture ourselves on the spiritual path. So here, my own opinion, in other words, the purpose of taking refuge in Chijo is to follow their footsteps. Whatever the Arya Sangha has done in the past, by knowing their practice and teaching given by them, and following their teachings unmistakably, completely, complete and unmistaken teachings of those Arya beings, Arya Sanghas, and achieving state of spiritual realization, in other words, the Arya path is the purpose of taking refuge in Arya Sangha. It's my own opinion.
당으로 빼다다는 가는 또 꼬라지자고 그래. 산지군주 주군주 민두군주 그려서 꼬라지자고 그래. 가는 꼬라지자고 그런다 만원 손으로 있지. 도와서 나는 랭이지나 도망을 산지기 타빌라지 대나도 근데 되어라. 제가 다도 예된반에 많다긴 지금 꾸니데 토마스 있는 산지 좀 산지가 된 말이야. 때문에 어디잖아. 때문에 나시지 뭐네 봐 라다 제네 근데 유마 유나 메나서 더 좋아이나 다 피드 가다 근데 좋다. 아니 근데 때도 라다이니 제대반에 지금 꾸니 때도 왔어. 그래서 제대반에 나는 나서는 라다이니 타이니 다 타자주고 세다. 싫어도는데 왜 싫어. 되니데 뭐네 또 도야도 근데 좋대. 아니 도도 왔어. 제가 때문에 이제 산지가 숨만 나히지 나는 겨이나 뭐네 모두 지금이 도 되는 밥이 받아서 도 내일다 밥이 받아서 저기 나는 저 나히지 하는 말하게 돼 제고도 고도래 뭐 배타니 이 짓을라야 무슨 또 변도 되시래도
So here, there is taking refuge in Dharma Jewel, the Sangha Jewel, is to follow their footsteps. Whatever the practice they have done in the past, and as an individual who took refuge in Sangha Jewel, the purpose of taking refuge in Sangha Jewel is to follow their footsteps, unmistaken footsteps, in other words. Follow their footsteps unmistakably. So, it's, for instance, the Buddha first gave the teachings, and Buddha had shown this, the stages of the path by giving the teachings on what is to be abandoned and what is to be, adopted. So for that, Buddha first taught the teachings of the basis, what we call the true truths are the basis. And on the basis of the teachings of the true truths, Buddha then gave the teachings of the path and the method. The path here refers to the wisdom, realizing emptiness, and bodhicitta. And then having perfected those paths and the method, then the result is true kayas, achievement of true kayas. So now, for us in order to follow those practice, we need to have someone who guides us. We cannot independently engage in those practice without relying upon any spiritual guidance or any, supporters, someone who supports you to understand the teachings of the Dharma. It is not possible for us to actually gain a proper realization. So therefore, whatever the teachings the Buddha has given, and the Sangha Jo are the one who followed those paths of the unmistaken teachings of the Buddha and achieved the realizations, which is the method and the path, wisdom, realization, emptiness, and bodhicitta. So, if those Sangha Jewels were able to achieve those spiritual realizations by following the teachings of the Buddha, then I too also be able to do that. If I'm able to follow their footsteps, the Sangha Jewel footsteps. So this is, another, purpose of taking refuge in Sangha Jewels.
Penata tanda chala chamurumbuchina Janju se rajule yosni shajinangdwa chazan tena yigi tatoni dunjit chitabe togoiba de shajinangdwa chadane yidita muzo chada chumden degi ni chuna yiramun chube tongwa re suma na yigi lalente nale jiwaina ko mune bage rajiji tongi chiyungdwa tena yigi ane rang jinziti ane nipa kuji tsawari yen jinziti yujun kuji tsawari suma nashigi nali jeni janju se juli jeni janju sengi gomba ina ane pyun dosni pa munsu kurun kar tsawari tongju yuwa tata musu mutole tongju yuwa tana nguni chunga rwa tana yindu ane musu wata tana sanji ku suma nage nale jeni munsu chungli tuyendengi pabi kanza 당 지 법에 가서 차라니 그렇게 나한테 말을 줘도야 근데 저 나나시 제 소소도 못 지금 무슨 때냐 무슨 좋아해서 소소게 대나게 지라다 지었다니 다 법에 가서 대 다소도 저를 다뤄서 하나게 엔터리에 뭐 배다니 나는 제외 지사로 저 손에 안 되지 제가 있었어.
So here, for instance, His Holiness Dalai Lama, he himself has stated several times that he has achieved bodhicitta. However, he is not actually saying that he has gained the direct realization of emptiness. He just said, I have gained the conceptual realization of emptiness, not the direct realization of emptiness. Or whatsoever, he has gained those by following the teachings of the Buddha. And this Holiness is one of the examples that we can follow, that who by his own practice to be able to achieve these levels of spiritual realizations. So we too, if we were able to follow those teachings and practice, we will be able, just as those other beings, the realized beings, have gained this spiritual realizations, we too have an equal opportunity to gain those realizations. Because Buddha has given the teachings of the path and the method, and giving the teachings of importance of abandoning self-cherishing mind and adapting the cherishing for the welfare of other sentient beings. In fact, what I stated the cherishing of one's own, cherishing of self-cherishment is said to be the seat or the root of all these downfalls or the faults, in other words. And the cherishing for the welfare of other sentient beings is said to be the quality, the quality of, the virtue. It is a root of all the virtues and so on. So if we are able to follow this practice, unmistakably, in a consistent manner, then as a result of one's prolonged practice, without a doubt, we will be able to achieve those Arya's path and become oneself as Arya Sangha. And this is also another reason why we take refuge in Arya Sangha. So we don't have much time, but if you have questions.
If enlightenment is cessation, if enlightenment is cessation, and we always talk about, I'm going to be enlightened. But who is it that is enlightened?
If enlightenment is cessation,
Then who is
it?
who is enlightened? It is the self is completely disappears. So we always say that I'm going to be enlightened when you have to abandon the self.
Against that difference. That's here. 먼저 전 sanskrit 나오는 일어나시죠. 그 don다야 쉬도 고den스. 인진나도 먼저 cessation scripture 와. 강가 되는 알아. 이 교시산디요. cessation 되고 지 간다지 매우사지 고월. 마지 그 cease라고 그 매우사지 고월와. 소자다 산지 고관톱서 줄리아다 터도 고den도 되는 강가 매우사 봤다가 강가 짓고 매우사 소리 고 왔어. 소자다 네 다 가자 그런 매우사 고래 때 가자 그런 매우사는 산지에 고고 그랬어요. 또 그런 데죠. Joseph to the Isha, can you just? 맞습니다. 지난 덕분 사이즈에도 코로지 백 코로나 선배는 배진 당주 때문에 태민 소외줘 봐.
내려다 성지 선보 성 남이 그거 침이 안 되네.
가자 그런 거 자고 말어.
근데 그거 침이 안 되네. 그거 침이 안 되네. 성지 선보 성지 그것도 되는 거 뭐든지 도용으로 와. 그 도용이 그래 성지 가르 상그는 근데 문제비 좋아서 그래다. 바로 그것도 맞아야 다 매버서 도나 뇽을 비트마다 해지를 거니까 매버서야 돼. 파사야 돼.
So here the first important thing is to understand here when we talk about cessation, we're not talking about ceasing oneself. We're not talking about becoming oneself non-existence. We're not talking about the individual who practices becoming existence, ceased completely. When we talk about cessation, it is cessation of two obscurations. Obscuration is being ceased. When you are two obscuration and being ceased, then you have gained a certain quality, what we call the state beyond two obscurations. That is what is meant by cessation. And all those negative, in other words, negativities has been abandoned, with their imprints. You have gained cessation. But that doesn't mean that individual has been ceased. Someone who practices has been ceased. This is not what we're talking about here. Wait a minute, okay, please. Just let him continue.
Sanji jul kare yo marna. Nyumar. Denzi yo mari. 소통한테 방사래, 상사래.
So what Buddha has seized, Buddha has not seized as individual himself. What Buddha seized is two obscurations. Buddha seized, is self-cherishing mind. Buddha has completely seized all those self-grasping mind, grasping at phenomena and grasping at self.
저 집에서 해야 되겠다. 출담제 라틴어 줄여서 무슨 또 이때 다 공부 타면에 편에 예진도에 맨날 집에.
So then, having abandoned and gained this decision, then Buddha has gained the wisdom or the omniscient mind that understands all phenomena as they are.
벽이 어리지는 뭐대서 해야 돼. 뭐대서 생일이 가가지고 뭐세야 돼. 뭐be 계셔. 뭐봐. 까봐. 어쩌든 나살려도 물고 가져서도 물고 가져서 나살도 마요문이 뭐뭐 뭐요에도 막 가야 가져오라. 물고 가져서 뭐대서 근데 그는 유모 pontsani 라야 로절 유모 미치위치도 막 가야 거지. 시르 ponts 이제 라야 로절 시르에 뭐요에도 막 거기 고대스네. 된대에는 자와 치바와 치려 고대스 고스 대세야데 대상을 줄을 대바이고 된 고대스 코인스도는 된 고대스.
The cessation is, once you gain the cessations, there are, you could say there are many different kinds of cessation. For instance, if one is able to seize the one of delusion of, in other words, let's say anger, we are able to seize that, not just being able to control or subside it, but able to seize completely from the root, then you gain a cessation from that level of that kind of negative thoughts. And in which case, this negative thought will never, it has no room for, to arise in your continuum in the future. Not at all, once you gain this cessation. Because we're just being able to control and to subside. That doesn't mean we gain the cessation of this anger, but rather it will come back later. It's somewhere there, and we haven't been able to uproot it. To be able to uproot, if you are uprooted, then you gain the cessation, and this is what we call. Then you gain this sudden realization of state beyond anger, and then the anger will never arise again.
어떤데 사지우제 니지 친구들 자주고서는 요래 돈이 못 되게 싫은데 요래 하는 말들이라 같이 가요에는 서서 또 나진데 요래 다 사죠.
So in fact, the Buddha possesses all kinds of qualities. Later on the Buddha sees, but he has all kinds of qualities that possessed by the Buddha. Wisdom that understands all phenomena as they are. Buddha possesses the perfect method, which are the bodhicitta, compassion and all.
Oh, so now that we're into the book, okay, would it be helpful for me to read ahead, so that Rinpoche, when Geshe-la was teaching, I wouldn't be seeing it for the first time. I could look at it for a week and then hear his opinion.
Okay.
That's what I'd like to do.
Oh yeah, that's good. 남게 그런 데지. 순재 맞아 본데야. 저게 제제시로와 순재 나야기 제제시로와 대야 보는데 라야도 가비였어. 그래서 딜라베는 이미 치즈에 순재 시외 가비야. 이제 소소리야. 그래서 가서 다시 고치야. 그래서 골레라야. 뭐도 스테선자. 대체외서도 그런데 제외서 되게 좋았어요.
때문에 배워 가능해.
This is the right way. It's a good.
Okay, but not too far. I don't want to get too ahead of myself, okay?
그래서
되게 기호도 하고 있는데 집에서.
내 제가 여보도
That's a good recipe.
Okay.
근데 데리고 것도 내 쇼마 쇼도도 맞아 쇼도도 트레이닝 처음
Okay. Thank you.
슈마 시에 거들마 쓰들라고 보이나
Condition. So we have not, as I said, we don't have much time to go through our actual discussions of the Siksa Samuccaya.
저도 되는 그런 말에 동안증이나 세이트 슈마 무서 주된데 시엔데는 거 좋아해
So
란데 란데 남에 스카디 무서 게자 소만 줄
long.
어디 란데 남에 세방베 게와다도 소만 줄 저바야는 메자데 지번 주장 담아자 내가 고된 지자시 금바다도 방아자
So
그래서는
next week we will be discussing on this first victim, the project What is Good by being free from
Speak a little louder.
craving is a 15, verse 15. This is the verse that we will be discussing in our next session, next week. Protect what is good by being free from craving for results of evolution that benefits yourself and don't regret it afterwards. And after you do it, don't make it publicly known. That is what we will be discussing next week.
저도 드디어 또 다시 나가고 근데 들어야나
Shall we stop here or have any questions?
So we should say the dedication prayers.
No,
Page 23 and
no
24.
more.
And continuing with auspicious wishes on page 28.
거기 저는 걸 배하고 되지라고
So we had a wonderful time of talking on refuge, which is very important in human existence.
Right. Very good.
Thank you for
요한데 대난로 고라카베 제발 주소로 산토 데베니 보르도 사데 요제베도나 레라네 제니데 제바데 산제신도 모데고와이 로교 남다 예나 제바라오쇼 야나라마나 라메 주제 벨라마 주제 사나람지 예데라소니 도제 자기고 마녀도쇼 레나메라라카네 아다야메 고세 라데 남고라데 조주디와노 로산데베 루메 사소니 로에메 세타도네 주로지 오예제 가소 대단데와 마메주에네 제레스 와티세 자소니 샤베세 데와도네 주로지 제다 제바나 군도 사보데야 디제네 제다 군지 제소 다로지 요한테다 나지로도 대소지베 자와탐지 모아카나 조도 마가리 다게 기회서 안되게 아무 주제로도